golly, don't pat yourself on the back yet. We got to get all the way there, but we're close enough now that we can really start thinking about the opening kickoff to a Big 12 and to an Oklahoma State football season, which will be September 12th with Tulsa inside Boone Pickens Stadium. But season ticket holders that got in are being notified so they can pick out their seats. That's going on, and right now everything looks like a go for the football season. Let me introduce everybody that's along for the ride today. We're going to have some fun. We've got back in studio Patrick Wheeler, who is part of our game day coverage on Oklahoma State game days and also the producer on my show during the week. He's also got his own show in the afternoon every day with the Afternoon Sports Drive with Jason Elmquist, and he is the voice of Perry Maroon football. Patrick, say hello to everybody.
Hello, everybody. I'm sure
Hello,
people
everybody.
recognize the voice a little bit.
There you go. You're gonna in Perry. They're really gonna recognize it.
Oh,
He'll
that's
be
right.
calling
Starting tonight.
lots of maroon touchdowns. Jordan Woodruff, our program director and chief potentate, back in the studio as well. You'll hear him on Ponca City football, but you'll also hear him on game days as well. And Jordan, longtime member of the Triple Play Sports Radio staff, former manager with Eddie Sutton and Oklahoma State Cowboy basketball. You know him, you love him. Hey, Jordan, what's up?
Oh, not much, Robert. Ready to talk some football, and glad we're at this point and able to talk football because about 2 weeks ago I didn't know if it was going to happen.
I agree with you. I agree. Special teams captain at Oklahoma State, played safety and linebacker for Mike Gundy and the Cowboys. He is heard across the state on high school football. He's also part of the Cowboy Radio Network now and also part of our game day coverage on Triple Play Sports Radio. Deion Imade. Hey, Deion.
Could it be? Could it be, ladies and gentlemen? Yes, football season has started.
Yeah, you got some games to call. I hope you did your homework, my man.
You know I did.
All right. And last, certainly not least, he remembers the days of leather helmets, longtime color voice on the Cowboy Radio Network. He DJs in his spare time on Sundays on Triple Play and is also a big part of our game day coverage on Triple Play Sports Radio. Like I say, a man who knows leather helmets like I know. Hey, I know suspension helmets. It's the one and only Tom Dirato.
You know, I'm sitting here wondering what I'm doing on this panel. I mean, I don't have the resumes of any of the people you just introduced. None. So I'll just sit back and listen to the expertise that'll come forth from everybody.
No, the jukebox captain has to be on here, Tom.
No, that's not even what I'm talking about. You guys all have the current resume going. I don't have any of that going. So I'll listen to the experts and see if I agree.
Tom has the classic resume, Robert.
Yeah.
Oh,
No
you didn't
kid.
get the memo?
I mean-
We all slipped Robert $20 to beef up our resume. Sorry, we didn't put you in on that.
Well, I guarantee you, I wouldn't pay him 20 cents, much less $2 to be on. So.
Okay, now that we've established Tom's mood for the next hour, let's just get right into the thing that's crazy. And Tom, really, this is why we brought you in. You can give us a little bit more history, and you've got the longest tenure of being on the radio talking college football, and we've got a college football season that we've never seen before, the likes of.
And hopefully we won't see again. I guess there's no assurance of that, but it has been it's been a chore, to say the least, right, across the board for everybody to get to this point. And there's some teams that aren't to this point, as we well know, in some conferences. Where the point will take us, I don't think anybody knows. But from an Oklahoma State perspective, you know, the last time we won a football game was in November the 23rd last year. You know, so it'd be nice to be back on the field and put a two-game losing streak to bed and get off on the right foot. But I would say this, just in general, and, you know, you guys are going to get specific, and we will a little bit later. But, you know, this is a no-excuse year as far as I see it for Oklahoma State football. I mean, there's no – everything else being equal, and who knows how we can make something equal, right? In this day and age, you can't predict anything. Injuries, certainly, and the COVID, I think, will come up and test everybody's patience, depth, ability, and all that on a week-to-week basis. But everybody's kind of starting in that box in the same way. Nobody's got a leg up on anybody. But for Oklahoma State, I mean, this is a no excuse year. You got all the talent back that you could possibly have. Perhaps you could make an argument this is the most talent we've had in a while, to say the least. Maybe other than the year we made a run at the Final Four. So there's no reason for this team not to be playing Oklahoma twice. In my mind, you're going to play them once anyway, but also meeting them in the Big 12 championship game for the title. I mean, you've got all the things going your way. I will caution this, though, and Robert, you know where I stand on this. I don't get carried away, but in every sport, and I've seen this for 45 years now, when you continually talk about how great you are in your own little bubble, you tend to forget, the people who are listening and reading tend to forget that, other teams have as many good players sometimes as you do, but you tend to think you've got them all stockpiled in Stillwater. And then when you play these teams on a Saturday, you go, how in the hell did they compete against us? They don't have the kind of players we have. So I will caution there that not all the great players are in Stillwater, but there's a heck of a lot of them, and there's no excuse not to be there in Arlington, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think we'll get to that. I mean, I look at it, and I think there's definitely a top four in the Big 12, and like I said, we'll get to that. But I did want to bring this up. Somebody the other day, and this is along the lines of what Tom just said, guys, and I want to get all of your opinions on this, said, well, the SEC and the ACC and the Big 12 are playing, but the Big 10 and the Pac-12 aren't, and this is a tarnished year. No matter who wins it, it's not going to mean as much, and there'll be an asterisk and all these other things. And my opinion to that, and I want to be fair, I want to hear what you guys think. My opinion is this one's going to mean even more, because just to get to the start line, you've had your coaches, your players, your administration, even your fans have had to make sacrifices and do things to kind of handle the COVID. And then once you get to the start line, not only do you have to handle COVID, but like Tom said, you have to handle everybody else and the players they've got and the teams they've got. So when this is all said and done, whenever it is, and maybe it doesn't even get done, but if it does and there's a champion, I'm going to say all hail to the champion, because they weathered more than you would in a normal year. What do you guys think?
Well, let me start off with this one. I see where you're coming from, Robert, especially in the situation of all the adversity that all these teams in this country is going to have to face. We can't, be distracted and say, hey, this is for all the marbles and stuff. There's still a situation where 2/5 of the Power 5 conferences are not going to be playing or in the same, situation that we're in. But if when the team that comes on top this year had to face so much adversity, and not just the team and the players that are playing between the white line, I'm talking about the program as a whole. I'm talking about the strength and conditioning staff. I'm talking about the trainers. I mean, everybody's always involved, but it's going to take everybody inside the program this year to make it to the end of the season.
To bounce off that, every single year when we talk about a national champion, we talk about the effort that was put in every single year to get to that spot. Well, think about it this year. The effort has been as intense as we've ever seen. The amount of effort from players and coaches that it has taken to even get to a starting point right now, you add that on top of what comes with the season, and this is as legit of a champion as we're ever going to see, whoever ends up being at the finish line there. Think about it. Everything they've done to get to this point, that you've asked college kids to do a lot of things that they shouldn't have been asked to do in any normal year. First of all, you've asked training staff, you've asked coaches to adapt to something that really no one has ever dealt with, and trying to put a football season in a pandemic year. All that effort combined with what's going to be put out on the product in the field, that's to me the definition of getting to a championship game, winning it. All that combined, this is as big of a year to count a real champion as there ever has been in my book.
Yeah, I think that, college football is littered with people that have claimed championships retroactively, said that we won it this year. So even if there's not a college football playoff, I think that somebody can claim a championship, or even you could see the playoff in the Big Ten and Pac-12 if they do play in the spring, which I don't think is going to happen personally. they can claim their own champion. We've had co-champions before in college football. The college football playoff has solved a little bit of that. But even then, we've had like, what was it, Central Florida or whatever that said that, hey, we didn't get a chance, so we're just going to claim a chance. So, I mean, college football is littered with that. But for me, we focus on a champion, right? Well, there's only one champion or maybe two, who knows? But there's only one champion. What college football needs the most for a lot of areas is the season. And not just college football, the athletic departments. What they need is a season to get some of that television money. There's only one champion on most occasions, but the season is what means so much. And these players have worked so hard for that it's good to see them pay off. And it's also good for local economies, local communities, for everybody involved that we're actually going to get to see a season in this part of the country.
And hey, Tom, real quick before you say, I've got kind of an update for everyone too. As of 20 minutes ago, Bruce Feldman reported that the Big Ten coaches are on a call right now, meeting and talking about that there's a real possibility that the Big Ten may reverse course and try to play later this fall.
Wow, how about that? I guess public pressure, I guess.
Ohio State wants a championship.
That's right.
Or at least a chance to say they can play for one.
Well, hey, that AP poll had to have them licking their chops. I mean, because look at this, man. We got some teams up there, and we got a chance, and they love Ohio State. So, yeah, I can see that. Final word in the segment, Tom.
The asterisk part of this, everybody who doesn't win the championship will want to put an asterisk next to the season. But I guarantee you the team that holds the trophy up for the final time, there'll be no asterisk there. That'll be a national championship, and rightfully so. So it depends on what side of that fence you're on. If you don't win it all, you can point to, well, it wasn't a real year, and I guess I'd be a little premature to say we could look at the Big 12, the Pac-12, and the Big Ten. They didn't play. Well, maybe the Big Ten's going to play now, but nonetheless, the team that wins it, there'll be no asterisk there. They'll treat it like it was a championship under normal circumstances.
The banner will be hung, Tom.
And Robert, let me ask, if I could add something. In college football, they're always trying to take something away. I mean, apparently Reggie Bush didn't win the Heisman when we all know he did.
Yeah,
I mean, every year they're trying to take something away. But to those kids, when you achieve that greatness in that moment, that's all that matters.
No, and I'm with Tom and with all you guys that just threw that out. Anybody can say whatever they want, but if you survive all right, welcome back. It is the Triple Play Sports Radio College Football Kickoff Roundtable, and we've got Patrick Wheeler and Jordan Woodruff in studio. Tom Dirato's on the horn. So is Deion Imade and Robert Allen here from our good friends at Furniture Showcase. Time to turn our attention to the Cowboys, and I'm going to make my message short and sweet, and anybody can pick it up. I've been all about defense. I know we can talk about Chuba Hubbard. He's a Heisman Trophy candidate and led the Division I FBS in rushing last year. We can talk about Tylan Wallace. Last time we saw him on a football field, he was stiff-arming Iowa State cornerbacks into the turf, and he's an All-American. We can talk about Spencer Sanders back, and we can go through all the litany of playmakers, and I know I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Tom's favorite, Dylan Stoner. But I really love what the Cowboys have got on defense. They've got some experience now. I'm a big Malcolm Rodriguez fan. Love all the linebackers. Trace Ford, even though he had COVID this summer, he is becoming a force. He is going to be fun to watch him continue to develop. And then you got the back end of the defense, which has a lot of playmakers and has added a guy like Christian Holmes that really is a talented cornerback that will help out. So, guys, I'm all about the defense. I can't wait to watch it.
Well, I'm going to amend one thing that you said going to the break. I'm all about Big 12 championship game or bust, not Big 12 championship, because I don't have that much orange on that I could proclaim that when you only beaten Oklahoma 2 out of the last 15 times, that all of a sudden that's a done deal. So I think it'd have to be something just horrific for Oklahoma State not to get the Big 12 championship game with all the people that they have, all the depth they have, all the talent they have returning. And I'm big on returners. Deion knows all about that. You're better after you've played a year or two, or you should be, and you have a lot more confidence in what you're doing when you come back. So Oklahoma State's got all the ingredients from depth and challenging Oklahoma. And as I said to you before, Robert, earlier this week, if we're playing today, and again, it's not the orange glasses, but you can't take as many hits as Oklahoma's taken with people who are not going to be eligible, got people who have left the program, people who are injured and out for the rest of the year. In this day and age, you can't take 8 or 9 hits to frontline people and still be, I don't care if they got 18 star guys waiting in the wings. If they haven't played, they hadn't played. And you don't have a quarterback who's been under the microscope yet. He hadn't done it when he's had to do it. So I think Oklahoma State right now, probably personnel-wise, has as much or more talent than anybody in this league. That doesn't always translate into a final resting place, if you will, at the end of the year. You still got to go out and do it. But I would be extremely disappointed if Oklahoma State was not in that championship game. Now, when you play in the championship game, everything's up for grabs there. So I wouldn't go that far. I wouldn't put that on anybody.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I agree with you, Tom. Experience helps quite a bit. And you know what they say. The best teams are normally the ones that are the healthiest going into the later parts of the season. And what really helps with that is being able to play with a lot of depth as far as with your whole team. If you can move guys in and out, if you can have guys fresher in the fourth quarter, that doesn't just translate into the game. That translates into the season, where you're having guys a lot more fresher in the later parts of the season when championship ball needs to be played, when it gets colder. So it's going to be very, very important that this depth holds up for the Cowboys. And I'm with you, Robert. I'm like, everybody's been singing the praises of all the stars on the offensive side throughout. That's the reason why everybody's been thinking that this team is promised to do such great things. But once this camp started, nobody has, heard as much hype as this defense has, and they're doing a great job to start off the camp, first of all, and we're hearing some exciting stuff, and I'm looking forward so much. How many times can a program say where the guys who are, let's just call them the second team right now, because there's no way they're second team guys, but the second team linebackers are 2 guys that would have started for you 2 years ago if injuries didn't take place. How many people can say that? Where your second team, the guys that come in after your starters, are 2 starting caliber linebackers. That shows you the depth that's on that side of the defense.
No, I think, guys, I think defense is a huge part of this upcoming season. It's so easy, as you guys have said, to get locked into a 3-headed monster like there is at Oklahoma State on the offensive side of the ball. But I think on defense, we're asking a safety here to be your guy this year. I think Colby Harvell-Peel has to be the heartbeat of this defense. Not only just the athletic ability he brings, but reading the offense, making sure to switch up on plays when it's needed, getting all his guys in line. That includes the linebackers on every set play, not biting on play action. There's so many things you go down the list and say that he's going to be responsible for this year. But when he is able to make plays and get his guys ready to go, that's when you're going to see guys like Malcolm and Amon and Trace Ford, all those guys follow suit. When he is leading, and I know it's crazy, we talk about a safety right now being the heart and soul of your defense, but I believe that's the case. When he's leading, everyone else is going to follow. That's where you're going to find success consistently on the defensive side of the ball this year for Oklahoma State, because I don't see any reason why they're ever going to have too much trouble putting up points on the other side of the ball.
Well, it seems like under Mike Gundy, we've sat there and scratched our head. When are we going to get a defense? You said that in a lot of years. Now, you had the year with Glenn Spencer's defensive coordinator. You forced a lot of turnovers, and that made up things. But you think about, what about the defense that can just kind of shut somebody down? And you're not going to shut anybody completely down in today's football, and especially in this league. And I think we've all come to a realization of that. But the Cowboy offense is going to be able to score. I don't think there's any problem. There's too many athletes on the field, especially if those key athletes stay healthy. With the defense, last year we started to say, wow, this is pretty good. Now, most of those guys, another year of experience under their belt, more depth in those positions as well. I am really excited to see the Cowboy defense be able to do a little bit. And, how many times have we asked in this era of football for the offense to go out and make a play to win it? And, defense, it's just like, oh, they're going to go score. Who's got the ball last? this is the defense that has the playmakers and the people available and the depth that they should be able to make you the plays that are going to help you win the ball game. And I think we saw that last year.
Yeah, they won some games last year. I mean, the West Virginia game, they got to stop at the end to win the game. Malcolm Rodriguez picked 6 at Iowa State, wins the game. Plus, they had 2 other interceptions in the fourth quarter. So this defense last year started that way. And now that we've got juiced up on defense, I'm going to turn it back, and I'm going to take Tom. Tom talked about experience. I think he's absolutely right. And I heard somebody the other day, one of the ESPN national guys, it wasn't Herb Street, but it was somebody that said, give an advantage to the teams this year that have a returning starting quarterback. Oklahoma State has that. Spencer Sanders is a returning starting quarterback. Now, Spencer had some ups and downs last year. And I think when this is all said and done, a guy that's going to be behind the scenes, that's going to be able to take some credit and maybe, if things go the way we hope they will, feel that he had a stake in this, is new quarterbacks coach Tim Rattay. And I've talked to Mike Gundy about him. For the first time in Mike Gundy's career, the guy coaching the quarterbacks is not calling the plays, which means he's got all the time to be devoted to getting that quarterback right. And I think that's been huge. I think Spencer's going to be a better quarterback. I think that Rattay's kind of a whisperer that's helping him. And I'm anxious to see how that coach-player marriage plays out this season.
Well, I think Sanders, unlike some of the quarterbacks in this league, has the luxury of not having to be the guy every play to make every play work. There's a lot of people who've taken the pressure off of him. I mean, in the worst case scenario, when you got a guy like Hubbard you could hand it to, that's not a bad option if that's the only option you have, which is not the case. But when you can throw it to a myriad of guys who can catch it, run off, and leave you, you got cowboy backs. I mean, the offensive system does not require him to be the guy every play. Now, let's go back to Texas Tech. If you're not the guy most of those plays and you make some boneheaded plays, then the chances are things are going to go south. But unlike some other play, and again, I think Purdy has to be the guy more times than not. Ellinger probably needs to be the guy more times than not. Rattler's going to have to really be the guy more times than not. But I think the supporting cast that Sanders has this year will take somewhat of that heat off of him, where he doesn't have to be picture perfect every snap, because he's got a lot of guys who'll take attention away from, normally speaking, if they didn't have those guys out on the wing to catch it, and a guy like Hubbard and L.D. Brown and those guys to hand it to, all of a sudden now you got to make every play. That's a whole different ball game.
And when I look at the offense this year, just kind of what Tom was talking about with Spencer, there were times last year where, he threw a really pretty ball. But there were times when the mistakes he did make were completely avoidable. I say that because I think going into this year, he's needing to extend a few more plays with his legs. There were problems last year where he wasn't extending plays when he had open grass in front of him. I think he was trying to go for the big razzle-dazzle play too many times when he should be really just trying to simplify things. But Coach, as you said, quarterback coach Tim Rattay, I think has worked on that being one of the main focal points this year. Is I don't want to have to go for the home run ball every time. Let's get a drive going. Let's keep it simple. Our big plays will come because we have athletes that are good enough to make that happen at any time. But with Spencer too, just like Tom mentioned, supporting cast, this is the year, and it's going to sound pretty cliche and simple, but you got to use your stars while you have them. With a guy like Chuba Hubbard and Tylan Wallace coming back, and that doesn't happen all the time, and not knowing for sure how many games, hopefully you get all your games in this year, you got to use these guys while you have them. So if I'm Oklahoma State, I'm not afraid to feed my stars while I've got a shot with them this year. But I think Spencer Sanders molds into the fold completely with not just your offensive weapons and your defensive weapons, but the guy that's leadership is around him. He's experienced. He understands where to go with the ball, and decision making I think is going to be a lot better this year, especially early on.
Here's the thing for me. In this odd year, as we all know, you lost spring football. You probably couldn't get out on the field early on and throw and develop chemistry with some guys quite like you would if you didn't have COVID-19 like we see. You maybe didn't gather with people. There's a chemistry thing I feel like with quarterbacks and receivers and quarterbacks in the offense. I think Spencer, with a couple of years under his belt, will benefit from maybe not having some of that, where other guys, that didn't know they were going to become the guy, or maybe they thought they were, maybe they didn't get their spring ball, maybe they didn't get that time to, that extra time to build a little chemistry with some of the players. So I think that's going to serve Spencer well. And I think we are going to see, because of the weapons that are around him, I think we're going to see maybe the next step. And I think we can all agree with, when it comes to football right now, when you look at the quarterback position, you can have everybody else around you on the field, but 99% of the time, it seems like if your quarterback is average, your team probably going to be somewhat average. It's good, you're going to be good. If your quarterback is great, and some of that is the weapons they have around them, you step up to that next level all of a sudden. So I want to see Spencer take that next level step this year and become that guy. And I think he's got a good opportunity to do that. And y'all guys bring up a great point with Tim Rattay. If Spencer is able to do that, there's going to be a lot of people looking at that and looking at him saying that was a big reason for it. So I'm excited to see what Spencer Sanders can do. And, whether the Oklahoma State Cowboys win a Big 12 championship, have a chance to get to the college football playoff, I think that just like any quarterback, Spencer Sanders is going to have to be really good for the Cowboys to get to that level.
Well, let me harp on what Patrick said just a little bit. Let me disagree and agree with you at the same time, if I can pull that off. I agree with you where you're saying that Spencer Sanders needs to run the ball a little bit more, but we all got to think about this in a logical way. So many times where you have an African American quarterback, he's back there, and they look at him and say, "This guy is a runner. He's going to run the football." And sometimes when you're a younger quarterback, you try to prove people wrong and say, "No, I can throw this ball and I can wing it and I can be the prototypical quarterback." Sometimes that's in your head a little too much, and you don't use your athleticism when it would help you. With his experience in this offense and playing in the Big 12 and with a coach like Tim Rattay behind him and in his ear, you're going to see a more experienced Spencer, and you're going to see him being able to, break down defenses more, look down the field, and then when you don't have anything and you don't have anything, you'll have the confidence behind you to take off with your legs. We're going to see spectacular plays from him. I don't doubt that. But what I need to see is, where I disagree with you, Patrick, is not just feeding the balls to your stars repetitively throughout the year. When we had a situation last year, you got to remember, where everybody was like, is Coach Gundy giving Chuba Hubbard the ball too many times? We're going to need to see a situation where we have so many athletes. I mean, L.D. Brown and guys like Braden Johnson, we have a number of guys in this offense that can also carry the rock. I want to see those guys thrown into the mix earlier in the season. Get those guys used to being, counted and relied upon. And then when the times are tough, when we need them the most, put your stars in the game and let them shine.
Yeah, and you know what? I mentioned Dylan Stoner. I think Brennan Presley, the freshman's going to develop quickly. You got two big receivers, and it'll be interesting to see whether it's D. Anderson or whether it's the late arrival, Tay Martin, provided he gets eligible. And his numbers at Washington State show you he's a proven performer. But getting back to Spencer Sanders, I don't think I'm telling anybody. In fact, I know Tom knows this, and I know Deion knows it. I'm going to guess Jordan and Patrick do as well. Last year, Spencer was, in his first year, was really doing half-field reads. Mm-hmm. He was not asked to read the whole field. When you had four receivers in routes, many times you really only had two live because he was just keen on one side. Tim Rattay has brought him along. He's going to be a full-field read quarterback. I think he's gotten pretty good at it. I think he's reading defenses pretty good. And so now we're going to ask Spencer Sanders to do more with more, if you understand what I'm saying. Last year he was doing some with some. Now he's kind of grown up in the quarterback world, and you're asking him to do more. And the thing that I'm looking forward to, everybody wants to know when a new offensive coordinator comes in for Mike Gundy, what's his niche going to be? What's his little addition to the offense going to be? I've watched Casey Dunn for the last 2 years work with Chuba Hubbard on catching the football. And OSU really hasn't used the backs a lot in the passing game. But Chuba would like to do it. The NFL loves to see it. Casey Dunn is prepped for it. Just think about Chuba's abilities getting the ball to begin with in space in the passing game versus a pitch out or a handoff in the backfield. I just think Chuba in space with the ball, catching the ball out in a wide open field, oh, man, I don't want to be the guy on defense that has to try and pursue that.
And that requires Sanders to be good with the touch pass as well. I mean, those things sound easy on the surface, but to hit a moving target, Hubbard coming out of the backfield and try to lead him correctly, especially when somebody's in your face, those things are a lot easier said than done. But I want to throw this out at Deion because he's been on the defensive side. I come at this from a defensive coach, and I don't think the defensive philosophy is going to change a whole lot when you're playing Oklahoma State. You've got to find a way to not let Hubbard run off and beat you by himself. So you got to crowd people around and make sure he's got to run through traffic, which he's very capable of doing, I might add. But you've got to get after Sanders. I don't care if Tim Rattay's here or not, because if he's back there kind of wheeling and dealing with not a whole lot of pressure, then all of these people that we just talked about don't come into play. So it's not to take anything away from the quarterback. I mean, we know how important that is. But I do think there's enough weapons and enough options for the offensive coordinator here with Dunn to offset any defensive liabilities that might present and make it where defensive coaches are going to have to play people straight up, and that's never good when you got a lot of skilled people.
Yeah, and that's exactly the solution to that problem. You can't key on one guy in this offense because of that. For the longest we can remember since the Dallas Cowboys of the days of the triplets, everybody's wanted a three-headed monster. You want a quarterback, a running back, and a wide receiver that you can count on. The reason for that is because you can't key on one guy. When the running back's going, you can't load the box because you're afraid of what that wide receiver is going to do. And you can't put, 6 defensive backs out there because the box is going to be light and that running back is going to light you up. And this is the situation that we have here. Now that we have Spencer, who is now a more experienced quarterback, and he has, the knowledge to go with it, to go back to what Robert was saying, we are going to be able to utilize, Chuba in the passing game a lot more. There's a reason why he came back into college football, because there's a lot more things that he needs to show NFL scouts if he wants to get the draft grade that he wants to get. And I think one of those things is showing that he is a target out of the backfield in the passing game. With that being the case, it's going to put a lot of more stress on these defenses where you can't just say, put 8 in the box and he can't run between the tackles, we got him. Let the defensive end come around and let him contain. He can't go outside our defense, we got him. No. Keep him in motion, you move him around, and let's do some creative things with him. And I think Coach Dunn is going to be able to do that with this offense.
Well, a lot of times too, and Deion, you being a little bit more on the defensive side of the ball certainly know this. The best way to stop a guy in space is not to let him have space. I mean, so if you have him catching passes, running to the right in a flare, or maybe even have him at the slot at times, defense has to pay so much attention to that all of a sudden they have to get guys in that place, and it opens up another spot on the field all of a sudden. So having a back that is great in space that can catch the ball as well and be able to have space because they're having to focus on other areas of the field, or they're having to focus on him more and it opens up other things, that is a weapon that is massive. And Robert, you brought it up best. In the NFL, we have seen that weaponry become one of the main arsenals for a lot of different teams out there, is that back not only being able to run the football, getting the tough yards when they need it, breaking one every once in a while, but being able to catch the ball in a little bit of space, or get the defense thinking, oh, he's going to catch the ball in space, and it opens up another spot on the field.
Well, and you made a good point.
You're not going to get drafted.
No, Robert,
ahead,
you're
Pat.
Exactly right. That's what I was just about to say. You were just going to say what I was going to say.
You're
in
not
the
going to
NFL,
get drafted if you can't catch the ball.
You have to be able, the running back position, and not just that, you have to be able to be ready to line up. You got to go out there in the slot sometimes.
Protect.
Yeah, you got to run block and bounce off that, get ready for a pass. I mean, there's so many times that we've seen now too. Think about how the running back position has evolved from every single level. It's a trickle down effect. And Chuba knows that. If you can't go into the NFL, look at the NFL. there's not a lot of running backs that are strictly workhorse running backs anymore. You have to be able to get out there on third down, like I said, line up and make plays in the passing game as well. He knows that. He wants that opportunity, and with the guy with a skill set like Chuba, to me, it's a disservice to him to not get him the ball in space.
There's workhorse running backs, but they don't make as much
they
money.
don't, and they don't make it very long anymore either.
And I think
Casey Dunn understands, guys, that he's got something special there, and if he can make him even more versatile, make more of a jackknife of him than he already is, or a Swiss Army knife, then that's just going to make this offense that much better. All right, Deion, I know you want to talk. We got to take a timeout. We come back. I don't know if we're going to get – I wanted to get two things in. Everybody go through and kind of give us your thought on the Big 12, and then everybody close with something if they want to say something about high school football, something about NFL, whatever. But we'll do all that. We'll try and squeeze all that in when we come back on the Triple Play Sports Radio College Football Kickoff special, and we'll do that right after this. All right, welcome back. Welcome back to Triple Play Sports Radio's College Football Preview Special, Kickoff Preview Special. And Robert Allen with you from our good friends at Furniture Showcase. We've got in studio Patrick Wheeler, the voice of the Perry Maroons, and we've got Jordan Woodruff, the voice of the Ponca City Wildcats, and then we've got just the voice, Tom Dirato, and we've got the voice of high school football on Cox across the state. One of the voices, Deion Imade. So we got a lot. We got a lot of people. We got our own dream team assembled here, in my opinion. All right, guys. Whoever wants to kick it off, Big 12 football. What do you think?
Well, I'll kind of stick with my original look. I think this, to me, looks to be, and it's dangerous at this point, especially not knowing how far we're going to go, if we're going to go. I think these preseason predictions are a little shaky at best, but we'll do it just for the fun of it. I see this as a three-team race for the Big 12 championship in a regular season, and a three-team race for the two spots at Arlington. That's between Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, and Texas. I know everybody wants Iowa State to be good, and Robert, you and I have talked about this a million times. But this is the third straight year everybody's wanting Iowa State to be a contender. But for Iowa State to be a contender, in my mind, they're going to have to win two of the three games that I'm about to mention. They're going to have to come to Stillwater and win. They're going to have to go to Texas and win, and they got to beat Oklahoma in Ames. And if they don't win two of those three, they're not going to be a contender for the top spot or the top two spots. Now, again, the rest of the league, I think it's just a chase for fourth. I mean, I don't pretend to know every roster, but I would think that with Baylor's new coach and not a whole lot of preparation time, they're probably behind the eight ball. Kansas State always finds a way to beat somebody and find a way to the middle of the pack. I wouldn't be surprised there. West Virginia, who knows what they're going to do. I would think they could be a mid-pack kind of a team. But I do think you're contenders, and I'm going to back off on this until I see it up close and personal. And Tech, I don't think, is much of a contender. There may be a spoiler along the way. But I think you got a three-team race for the two spots in Arlington. I believe Oklahoma State, Oklahoma, and Texas will be answering those calls, and we'll see how that works out.
Deion, you go ahead, man.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think I agree with Tom. It's definitely a situation where you're looking at Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, and Texas. A lot of this preseason stuff is all about who has the top returning starting quarterback and which has the most returning coming back. And in our case, it's a win for us because we have a returning starting quarterback and we got a lot of starters who are returning back to the game. But as far as the Big 12 as a whole, it's going to be interesting to see how everything shakes out. I mean, Baylor is going to be interesting with their new head coach. TCU did a good job of recruiting this year, so it's going to be interesting to see what they unveil. Tech is going through so many injury issues last year and this year. I don't know what's going to be the shakeup there. But again, Iowa State, that's a team where you kind of scratch your head because they have the quarterback that is everybody's saying that he's a top-notch guy and he could be something, but does he have the talent around him this year? I mean, Matt Campbell, the head coach, is always putting together spectacular things over there, but Brock Purdy, what can you? I mean, everybody was talking about him last year, and as a guy to watch out for, and it just didn't have the success that they would hope for. So, I mean, I don't see how going into Texas, how they're being ranked higher than us in all these polls. I mean, again, it's a situation where you have a darling at quarterback, and everybody's loving him and what he brought to the college football as a whole. And his good story and his ability on the field, but I just think that at the end of the day, that Oklahoma State is a better team than Texas right now, from what I can see as far as preseason. Oklahoma, I mean, they have all the tradition, and they've got Spencer Rattler's coming in there, and they've got a lot of high hopes for him, but they've had a lot of issues as well. I just think Oklahoma State, and this is a little biased on me, but I do think this is the team that's the one that's there to beat here in the Big 12, and I think they got a lot of people, scared and rooting for them. So hopefully they can pull it out.
Historically, Texas underachieves and K-State overachieves. So let's just bump them up a few spots and down a few spots based on that. But I mean, to me, it's really interesting, and maybe it's because we are here and we're worried about other things that are going on, but it really seems like I'm focused on OU, Oklahoma State, and it feels like that's going to be it. Can Texas and Iowa State possibly play a spoiler to that? Sure. And most of the time, you think you got the two teams figured out, and somebody else ends up being in there. But Oklahoma State has all the ability. If they don't finish second in this league, it would be a shame. I think that there's just so many question marks everywhere that is out there, outside of maybe Oklahoma State, who maybe has the least of the question marks that are out there this season. What would be the biggest question mark when you look at it? You lost a couple of guys depth offensive line. You got a new offensive coordinator, but is he really new? The guy has been around for a while. So I think there's less question marks at Oklahoma State than anywhere else. OU, you got to put them up there just because they're always up there. They got the talent. They're the powerhouse. But could Texas and Iowa State maybe spoil something for somebody? Sure, that doesn't mean they're in the championship game, but I could likely see maybe one of those two. And then, is there going to be somebody come out of nowhere? I just don't know if I see that this year. And maybe, after a couple of weeks, we'll start to see that reveal itself a little bit more, maybe once you get a couple of weeks of Big 12 games in. But I'm just glad we're going to be playing football, guys, and I got a good feeling that I think that the Big 12 is going to get through the season and get to their championship game. I got a really good feeling about that. I think all the leagues that are going to play are going to do that. And in fact, who knows, maybe those other leagues will decide to start a little bit later than what the others are, and try to mess it up a little bit for the college football playoff committee all of a sudden. But I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good about where the Big 12's at. I'm feeling good about where Oklahoma State's at. And, this COVID-19, it's put a damper on a little bit of everybody. But I think also with the experience Oklahoma State has, and this is a big thing to me going forward for all these teams that are going to be playing, I think experience is a big key factor in this COVID-19 age, and I think that experience is going to help pay off for Oklahoma State.
Yeah, I'll be really quick here. I think, obviously, OU number one. Oklahoma State, to me, is really a clear-cut number two, and that's especially if they can stay healthy. I think it's their spot to lose here at this point with everybody that they return, and we've talked about. And to me, kind of a clear cut. Honestly, Iowa State, I think, is your number three. I love Brock Purdy. I think he brings a lot to the table. Tariq Milton is a beast at wide receiver. They have a really good tight end there too. So to me, they're at the top ahead of Texas there. You got Texas at number four probably for me, rounding out your top four, but it's going to be competitive in those four teams. After that, it's kind of a good luck Charlie situation for the rest there. And I will say this real quick. With the NFL updated, one player is on the COVID-19 list right now out of everybody else in the NFL. They've done such a fantastic job following protocols, making sure things go well. Also say this real quick to kind of finish it up. My Kansas City Chiefs are 2 weeks away from another Super Bowl season. I cannot wait for that to get started.
All right, so Patrick got his final shot in there, and I am not going to disappoint anybody. Yes, I think Iowa State is in the mix. I am not as sold on Texas, and it's going to take me a while, although I do think Mike Yurcich will improve them. I also want to throw this in. I think Neil Brown at West Virginia, and I think Matt Wells at Texas Tech are both dynamic, good young football coaches. Now, their teams aren't going to be good enough to compete. this year. And again, at Kansas State, I don't think there's any doubt they hired the right guy there. Those three teams, because I think Baylor's going to take a while to rebound and Kansas is Kansas, but those three teams will have a chance to decide who's in Arlington because they all will have a chance late in the year to knock off somebody they shouldn't knock off, and they may knock somebody off from going to Arlington. So I think this is going to be an interesting year. Now, that said, I want everybody to have a chance to throw their capper in here to finish off. So let's do an ID right now, and then we'll do the capper. So do an ID.
The parking sign outside his house says, Oklahoma State fans only. It's the Robert Allen and Friends Show on the Triple Play Sports Radio Network.
All right, Pat.
Perry Stolder, KOKP Perry Stolder, KOKP Blackwell, Ponca City. It's Triple Play Sports Radio, your home for live and local sports talk.
All right, there's the ID. All right, Patrick got his finisher in. My finisher is this. Think about this, guys. Mike Yurcich will call plays for Texas this year. Then you've got down in Waco, Texas, you've got Mike Gundy's very first offensive coordinator that's going to be calling plays for the Baylor Bears. And not to mention that you've got Doug Meacham, who's not the offensive coordinator, but he is going to call plays for TCU this season. And then, of course, Casey Dunn, who's been a long-time assistant, now elevates to call plays at Oklahoma State. I haven't seen this written up anywhere, but in the annals of Big 12 football, how many times has one head coach's program, and I realize Mike Gundy's not the genius. The genius is Lincoln Riley in Norman. But there are three former offensive coaches for Mike Gundy that are calling plays in the Big 12 this year. That I don't think I've ever seen in all the years I've covered Big 8 and Big 12 football. I don't think I've seen that kind of influence over the league on one side of the ball or the other by one program.
Well, it speaks to the quality of people that Mike's brought in. And even though the name might not be recognizable when they bring them in, the final product is recognizable when they leave or go take another job. And your point is extremely well taken, Robert. I can't remember that happening anywhere, anyhow. My last comment would be, and I want to throw this to Deion because as a former player, he may or may not agree with me, but this is true in any sport, and we say this all the time. You want to have this option. You want to have more talent than you know what to do with. I mean, that beats the alternative of seeking talent every day. You line up and try to find a play. But, over a course of a season, the buy-in, the let's stay on top of my game, I want to play, but it's okay. I'm waiting for my turn. But when you have so many talented people at every spot, one of the negatives of that, and I say negative in quotes because you'd rather have this than any time, is keeping everybody engaged and keeping everybody headed in the right direction. One team, one goal type thing. And I think that'll be a key not only for Oklahoma State, but anybody's got tons of talent because everybody wants to play. And for you to maintain that one goal, one team unity thing and not take away from anything along the long season that you play, that's about as important as anything.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Tom. I mean, it could be a situation where the number two feels like he's not getting enough playing time, and you still got to keep those guys engaged. And that's on the coaching staff to get those guys on the field and get them some burn as well. But going back to what Robert said, I want to talk about this influence, and I would be remiss if I failed to mention this on this platform that we have on, especially on this day, August 28th, with it being the day that Jackie Robinson was brought into the MLB and the day that Martin Luther King, spoke at the March on Washington in 1963. We had a situation where all these players spoke up and they had a platform and they used it. I want to remind all these Oklahoma State faithful that this is a situation that's going on in our country. I'm proud of what the NBA is doing, and this year it's not going away. The players will have stuff to say. I want you to support these guys outside the white lines and inside the white lines. Please do not forget that.
I guess, Deion, you kind of to go off that, I wanted to mention that we are. Who knows what's going to bring this season? Because who knows when the social aspect gets in? It's already there, but gets in, and something happens in college sports. So, but the way I want to end it on this is I got a good friend down in the Gulf. He actually was able to go to the bar the other day. He asked for 2 Hurricanes and a Corona. The bartender said that'll be 2020. And here's the thing I'll say with that. This is 2020, guys. So a lot of things can happen between now and September 12th. A hell of a lot of things can happen between now and a Big 12 championship game if we get there. We're in for a wild ride. What's up is down. This year is going to be crazy. There could be more wildness than we ever seen, more than we ever expected, because that is just in theme with what this year is. So hang on for a wild ride, and we're going to be around whatever happens, and we're going to, there's no finish line for us. We're just going to keep on going is the best way to put it.
No, and I want to thank everybody. You're going to hear all these guys. Tom is kind of the anchor of the coverage on game day. You're going to hear Deion Imade. He'll be on with Hopper during the post-game coverage. Patrick's going to be on with his regular partner, Jay Snelmquist. They'll be they're usually the lead off early in the morning. Jordan Woodruff's got his hands all over it. So you're going to hear these guys. Everybody but me you'll hear on game day here on Triple Play Sports Radio. And, of course, you hear a lot of these guys covering and being the play-by-play voice, Patrick for Perry and certainly Jordan for Ponca City and Deion on television across the state. And, of course, Tom you can hear on Sundays doing the jukebox as well. So, it's been fun. I've enjoyed this, and I hope you guys have too. And let's hope we get to the start line, and, gosh, let's hope we get to the finish line. Huh, guys?
Well, I appreciate the time. I think this was good, and, hey, I'd like to play this about 28 times. I'd really get excited between the time we hear this again and we start playing. I think everybody's looking forward to September 12th, and once we get there, I think everything will kind of take care of itself, and we can make progress the rest of the way.
And we'll let Tom finish it off for us right there. So thanks for listening. And for those of you that are listening right now, we'll be right back with the third hour of Sports Talk with Robert Allen and Friends. And the rest, happy football season.